us. It's plastic. Here, in our beautiful waters, in the very foundations of marine life, getting into the food we eat. I've joined a team of women that wants to know more about what's going on. Together, we'll embark on a journey, an expedition around the UK. This is the story of a group of women and our voyage of discovery. It all starts in Plymouth. Thanks, Lucy.
Welcome to Sea Dragon.
How are you doing? We get a few minutes to stow our gear and find our bunks. Thank you. Sorry, it's heavy. So this is home. Not much space, but that is the way it works on a boat. These women have each paid for their place on the expedition. A month-long journey around the UK, measuring for plastics and raising awareness as we go. A professional crew will be looking after us.
I'm here in the capacity as a deckhand. I'm basically here because I love sailing and I love the ocean.
And I'm looking forward to having an amazing time going around my home turf this time, around the UK, which is going to be incredible.
We have a day moored in the harbour to learn the basics, and then we begin.
First, let's get off this dock.
Diane Reid is our skipper. Some of her crew have sailed before. Others, like me, have little experience at sea. Out of the port and into open water, aboard our boat. A 72-foot expedition yacht called Sea Dragon. We're sailing from Plymouth around Land's End, up the Bristol Channel to Cardiff. To start with, all is calm in the evening sun. But there's bad weather ahead.
Main sheet holding.
And we sail right into it. Against the wind, with choppy waves. It's a horrible combination.
Ready.
Most of the boat starts feeling queasy.
There's a bit of sick on the side here. I'm just going to throw some water on it. Oh no. Don't be sick, watch out.
The Atlantic Ocean is merciless. And it's a rough start.
Are you filming? I've got no idea. Yeah.
A very long 2 days later, things finally start to get better. Vanessa, a fish buyer for a supermarket, emerges.
I'm alive again. She's alive. God. Sorry? That was such a horrible experience.
We're getting rid of the evidence. It never happened. I found myself in tears, sitting in the saloon, having my own 2-year-old tantrum. Felt well aware that it's a tantrum, but really wanting to just be home and wanting all the movement just to stop.
But mainly we're disappointed because we haven't been able to do any science. We feel a bit defeated. After all the challenges of the last few days, getting into Cardiff Bay feels like a real achievement.
It was actually one of the most miserable periods of my life. And I wasn't alone. These things have a bonding effect. 14 women who didn't know each other before the journey started, and now we know each other really rather too well, having seen each other in all sorts of different terrible states. And that's actually been very good for team spirit. Now we're all feeling better when the sun's out.
While we've been at sea, the expedition's 2 youngest ambassadors have been travelling upstream.
Someone's opened it and then doesn't want it.
Amy and Ella Meek have founded a campaign called Kids Against Plastic. They're too young to sail with us on Sea Dragon.
Got it?
Instead, they're tackling the problem of plastic pollution wherever they find it.
Right, let's go. We already can't fit any more in the bag.
I caught up with Ella in Cardiff.
How are you? Good.
We're picking up litter close to the bay.
That's how microplastics get into the water.
We find disintegrating straws all over the ground.
That's one of your big four plastics, isn't it? What are they again? Straws, coffee cups and lids.
Bottles.
Yep.
Bags.
Bottles and bags. So we can stop selling and using those.
And replace them with reusables.
Under the steps of the Welsh Assembly building itself, a reminder that plastic pollution is everywhere.
This is really, really important. This is about getting it up the agenda, getting it at the forefront of people's minds, and really like discussing like the multifacetedness of the issue. Like, we need to tackle it all together. We need politicians to listen to us. We need industry to know that we care about this and that we want the change now.
So we're off to Belfast, across the Irish Sea. 2 nights and a day of sailing. See you on the other side.
But we don't get very far. We're stuck in the Bristol Channel because our engine's not working. We thought we'd found the problem, a piece of plastic sucked into a filter.
The plastic culprit has been removed.
But now everything's put back together, we're still not moving.
Looks like things have escalated slightly.
We don't have water moving through the system yet. So I've gone back to 2 things. That piece of plastic that we had may have only been one of. There may have been more.
Diane and Holly keep searching.
That is a full blockage. Well done. There's a fish. It smells like a fish, actually. Is it alive? No, I've chopped his head off. Oh. Where's your scientists? What the hell is that? His head is in here.
Do science want this?
Science! And we have the head.
So that is what an eel looks like.
We're making our way out of the Bristol Channel, across the Irish Sea, and to Belfast. It's choppy, but we have our sea legs now. The next day, conditions are right to start trawling.
This is a very fine mesh to collect microplastics, and of course it will catch anything else.
But nothing is straightforward at sea. A curious grey seal comes to investigate, and we can't risk it getting tangled in our lines.
We've got another 20 minutes to wait now, guys. He's going, I want to see, I want to see.
At long last, the science is underway.
Ready?
1, go. Begin timing.
Start timing.
You stay slack, yeah?
Whee!
This trawl collects samples from the ocean's surface, even tiny particles of plastic. It's one of our most important pieces of kit.
Trawl out! Stop.
Okay, hold cat. Okay.
Time to investigate. The contents are filtered through sieves of different sizes and examined.
I found bits of plastic with organisms growing on it, and then I also found bits of what looked to be microfibers floating out of a gut of a fish.
We will see what he's got to tell us. I'm trying to take the intestine out so we can then empty it to check for anything that we can identify as plastic.
Even the unlucky eel in the engine is fair game.
That's the stomach.
Under the microscope, Tanya found 11 microfibers and a small piece of hard plastic in his digestive tract. Now far out into the Irish Sea, some visitors arrive.
That was so cool.
Their presence prompts a discussion about protecting this habitat. Sarah Tamburn is a writer, sailor and management consultant.
The fashion to drink water out of single-use plastic water bottles is an incredibly destructive piece of very clever marketing. So, well, you know, actually, I don't want you marketing stuff that just drops crap all over my streets, gets into my oceans and destroys my food chain. I'm not interested in it. So how do we encourage people who we want to be hydrated, who we want to be healthy, to drink the very good water which we in the United Kingdom are blessed with?
It's straight from the boat onto a beach clean, a tradition now for the crew of Sea Dragon. This one is the worst yet. You can hear the plastic crunching under our feet.
It's heartbreaking to see it happen everywhere. It's layers deep. You move it apart and something looks clean, or at least mildly clean, and it's just not. It has to end from the source. It has to be people disposing of their trash in the right way. It has to be companies finding different ways to produce their products so that it doesn't create this kind of waste.
Mostly what we got were bottles, bottle caps, and then a lot of ducks.
Oh, so someone's had a duck
race. It's out of sight, out of mind, because it's like nobody then thinks, where do these end up? And what happens to them?
So how many bags did we get from the beach team?
55.
And how much time did it take to gather?
90 minutes.
55 bags in 90 minutes.
We're heading north up to Scotland for the final part of Leg 1. It's a short hop from Belfast to Lamlash Bay in Arran. This is a crew transformed. These are our biggest seas yet, but instead of being sick, we're having fun. The wind is behind us, pushing us along.
Hello, I'm Claire Bridge with your showbiz news. A warning, there's some flash photography coming up. Singer-songwriter Neil Diamond has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and plans to retire from touring. According to a message on his website, the onset of the disease has made it difficult for him to travel and perform. Upcoming concert dates in Australia and New Zealand will be cancelled and fans will be offered refunds. The Grammy Award winner first began recording music in the 1960s. Actress Naomi Watts has been remembering her former boyfriend Heath Ledger on the 10th anniversary of his death. The actor was found dead in his New York apartment in January 2008 at the age of 28. It's believed he died from an accidental overdose of prescription medication. Naomi posted a tribute to him on Instagram and spoke about him at the premiere of her new film.
I'll never forget his work and who he was, his spirit. He's left a big mark on me and so many of my friends that we all hung out together with, and it's so sad that he didn't reach his full potential. I mean, he did so much, but his life was just too short.
Comedian Bill Cosby has made his first public appearance since facing charges of sexual misconduct. It's understood that his performance at a jazz club in Philadelphia helped raise money to buy musical instruments for children in need. Bill Cosby has denied the allegations against him. His first trial was declared a mistrial in June last year, and a retrial is due to begin in April. And 40 years after Mickey, Minnie Mouse has finally been given her own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Minnie first made her debut alongside Mickey in the 1928 film Steamboat Willie. Pop star Katy Perry co-hosted Minnie's star dedication ceremony. Other Disney children's idols who have been honoured on the Walk of Fame include Donald Duck, Winnie the Pooh and Snow White. Lamlash Bay in the Isle of Arran. And skipper Diane is preparing new crew members for the next part of the journey. Before leaving, some trawl samples need to be handed over.
Here we've got the samples from the manta trawl, so I'm going to analyse the microplastics and see the quantity and what types of plastic we have in that for all of the mission.
The crew has been forced to change course to avoid the tail end of a hurricane that's heading towards the west coast of Scotland. The new route takes Sea Dragon out from the Firth of Clyde, up to Fort William and along the Caledonian Canal to Inverness and Edinburgh. Fort Augustus, and the first glimpse of one of Scotland's most celebrated sites. Loch Ness. A chance for some science in breathtaking surroundings.
1, 2, 3.
The manta trawl is launched into the peaty waters of the loch. This bit of the journey has given the crew a chance to find out how much plastic is in some of our inland waterways. In comes the net for a first look.
Brilliant.
It doesn't take long for Emily Penn to spot something that really shouldn't be there.
So we found a little piece there, that bright blue colour, really obvious.
Found in nature.
This isn't the only experiment being done on board. The crew are also monitoring plankton, the tiny organisms at the bottom of the food chain.
They're the canary in the coal mine of the oceans, and it's really important to understand them. This is something that has really allowed us to gain a huge amount of very detailed, on-the-ground information. Most phytoplankton, most plankton research is done from satellites, and it's very difficult to sometimes understand what's really happening in the water.
But to get an even better idea of what's going on under the surface, the team has enlisted expert help. At the Scottish Association for Marine Science, Winnie Corton-Jones is taking a first look at some of the trawl samples.
This is a sample that they collected with the manta nets around Belfast. You can see a large number of zooplankton, but we've also got quite a lot of fibres. This is just a tiny amount from this one sample that was collected. You can see a much higher density of microplastics and indeed zooplankton as well.
Scientists don't yet fully understand the impact of plastic entering the base of the food chain, but it's still worrying.
I'm on the lookout because visibility is dropped and we're in the North Sea. I'm with Diane, our skipper, and Sue on watch team.
But the crew crew still manages to sample the water that's churning around them. And on the approach to Edinburgh, make a discovery.
Nasty nurdle. Oh my God. It's hard.
These nurdles are in fact small pellets used to produce plastic products. They're easily spilled and hard to see.
Well, you know, we got all this seaweed and it was all wrapped up in that.
Where's the nurdle pot? The nurdle pot. Nasty nurdle.
During the next few days in Scotland's capital, the aim is outreach and influence. So it's time to bring our most effective persuaders, the mission's junior ambassadors, Amy and Ella Meek, to a meeting at the Scottish Parliament. They've been tracing our journey on land and have a compelling message to deliver.
We use around 7 million single-use coffee cups and over 30 million plastic bottles every single day in the UK alone.
There's no excuse for using the amount of plastic that we do, and there's definitely no excuse for not doing anything about it. Remember, plastic's been around for less than a century, and we've already made it into one of the largest environmental threats facing mankind today. This is our problem, a completely man-made one. So it's up to us to fix it.
Plenty to think about as we prepare Edinburgh for our longest stretch at sea yet.
There's something great about having this tiny little environment that you have to manage on your own, and what you've got on board is what you get to use. So in a way, it's quite a good practice, really, for what we're talking about. This thought of having to use less and being careful about what you choose to use.
Oh my God, this is beautiful.
With all of that in mind, we're London bound. We'll be sailing through the North Sea, around the East Coast, along the Thames to London. After a stop in the capital, we're heading back to Plymouth, where our journey began.
It's a child's happy birthday balloon, and you can see that it's a 2-year-old's birthday, which is lovely, and I wish the child in question a very happy birthday. The sad thing about this is that this balloon, which is probably quite fresh, it's still got a lot of its gold colour on it, so the child is probably still only 2. The balloon in the marine environment will last a lot longer than the child. This would stay in the sea, breaking down into smaller and smaller, but still very toxic pieces for hundreds of years.
London VTS, Sea Dragon, we are now within sight of the barrier, over.
Sea Dragon, London VTS, proceed on and take Foxtrot stand.
How cool is this? Isn't it cool? It's pretty damn neat.
But the best is yet to come.
Oh, it's lifting!
Tower Bridge is being raised for Sea Dragon.
Anyway!
After all the weeks of sailing, it is a magical moment. It's quickly back to reality, though, as Sea Dragon pulls over to wait for a space to dock.
Well, we do have some single-use plastic here.
How appropriate.
Yeah.
So have we actually pulled up next to a rubbish barge?
We have.
Is that intentional?
I don't think so.
But the pile of trash is in some ways useful, offering us a chance to think about the challenge of consuming less.
Boats are very good training for living in a small world, because it is, you know, a boat at sea is a small world, and we only have one planet, and we're living as if we've got 3.
It's huge.
What's made you so emotional?
I've been working on this for 18 months, and the fact that we were able to come through Tower Bridge and it opened up for us is just absolutely mind-boggling for me. I'm too moved to speak, really, sorry.
Our lucky run with the weather ends, and the last phase of the journey is a tough one. When it all stops, we're rewarded. A reminder, if we needed it, that the ocean is a special place. The harbour beckons. Sea Dragon has come full circle.
The sea is what connects us, and the ocean is what holds us together. And we tend to think of the ocean as a divider when it's a uniter. And for me, that's been a really strong reminder of that.
For now, though, it's time to say goodbye. I've been inspired by these women and their desire to rise to this vast, complex challenge. And because of this experience, many of us are going home with a new understanding of what's at stake. We've had a truly unforgettable journey around our beautiful islands. And ultimately, one full of hope that making a difference, protecting these precious waters, turning the plastic tide, is within our reach.